Hi everyone, just another YouTube video helping to introduce the next discussion board assignment. It's on the Quran. It gives you the page numbers there. It includes the introduction to the Quran, so please read that. And then, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 pages out of the Quran. So it asks you to choose 2 passages and tell us which passages you choose. You can either quote them or summarize them, but tell us where they are. And then compare and contrast each sort of understanding of the divine or of God to a Christian understanding of God. That can either be your own understanding if you're a Christian, or your own understanding of how people around you who are Christians understand God. So the main point is to sort of compare the Quran, the Muslim understanding of God, to a Christian understanding of God, to see how similar they might be, how different they might be. So let me just say a few words about the Quran. This is all in your introduction, and then I'll read you a passage. Quran means recitation. And the book is actually not supposed to be translated. It's in Arabic, and it's a kind of divine speech. It's meant to be heard, it's meant to be recited. It's not meant to be read, necessarily like we think of reading the Bible. So lots of Muslims, for example, memorize the entire Quran, which is not as long as the Bible, but still long. And they have a recitation contest in all Muslim countries. Young children, they even have contest shows where people will compete to see who can most beautifully or most powerfully or most profoundly recite passages from the Quran. So that's a big part of it. And it doesn't read that well in English translation. So that's just something very important to understand about it. Another thing about it that's important, and we talked about this a little bit when I introduced Islam, is these words from the Quran come from Muhammad, but clearly they come out of this tradition of Judaism and Christianity. If you read the Torah, the Old Testament from Judaism, and then you read the Gospels, the New Testament from Christianity, Islam kind of takes both of those traditions, even those texts, maybe, though Muhammad was illiterate, but even those texts and those traditions, and sort of combine them. And the Quran repeats a lot of the same stories, the same ideas. It's all one tradition, right? The so-called, as Muslims call them, people of the book, Christians, Jews, Muslims. So it's all one tradition. And when you read the Quran, you have the same characters often, the same prophets. Noah's a prophet, Moses is a prophet, Abraham's a prophet, even Jesus is a prophet. Though of course he's not considered the son of God, but just another prophet, a messenger of God. Like Muhammad, a messenger of God. Other than that, I mean, I'll give you one quick take on the Quran. It's a little tough to read, just like the Old Testament's tough to read. If you try to read through all of it, right, there's a lot of things to take into consideration when you read it, right? So it's not an easy read. When you read the Quran, one of the things that stands out to me anyway, may not stand out to you, is if you read all of it, there's a lot of heaven and hell talk, much more than you hear in the New Testament or the Old Testament. That is, if you follow the rules and obey God and have faith or do social justice, you will go to heaven. If you don't, you're going to be damned to hell. And you hear a lot of that go to heaven, be damned to hell kind of talk throughout the Quran. But it's very beautiful when chanted or recited in Arabic, and we do lose that in translation. So I'm just choosing a passage. I have it here out of your book on, let's see, I have page 862. I'll just read it. So you would quote a passage like this, and then just sort of reflect on, how close this is to your idea of what the Christian understanding of God might be. They're probably pretty similar, right? Since they're the same kind of tradition. But anyway, everyone should, read a little bit of the Quran just to know what it is, just to have some sort of sense of what Islam is, right? So here's a passage. In English, not chanted beautifully in Arabic. You who believe, be steadfast in your devotion to God and bear witness impartially. Do not let hatred of others lead you away from justice, but adhere to justice, for that is closer to an awareness of God. Be mindful of God. God is well aware of all that you do. God has promised forgiveness and a rich reward to those who have faith and do good works. Those who reject faith and deny our revelations will inhabit the blazing fire. So you could take a passage like that and, offer your reflections, compare it to Christianity as best you can. You have 2 passages for this assignment. That's it. Hope you're all staying safe during this very difficult time with the coronavirus, and I'll see you next time. Adios.